June 26th, 2019 marked the release of one of the most influential Fire Emblem games in the series' history. Love it or hate it, Fire Emblem Three Houses has elevated the name of Fire Emblem from a niche series that gets hated on for its strong Smash Bros. Representation to a household name series that gets hated on even more for its even stronger Smash Bros. Representation. But we're not here to talk about that hate. Or are we? Well, now that the dust has settled and the hype has died down, I think it's time to take a look at how well constructed Three Houses really is as a Fire Emblem game in comparison to the other entries in the franchise. My evaluation is based mostly on my own biases here, so feel free to chime in the comments below and let me know your own thoughts and whether or not I forgot anything. To start things off, let's talk about the story and the world of Three Houses. This is one of the main things that I look for in a game in general, let alone Fire Emblem. Anyone who knows me knows that my undying love for Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War comes almost solely from how well crafted its story and characters are in comparison to the all-time greats of gaming, let alone the series itself. Three Houses seems to attempt to do that, but that's kind of all it ends up doing, unfortunately. Attempting. I'll start with the main flaw of the story here. Basically, it tried to bite off more than it can chew. We've seen in past iterations of Fire Emblem that splitting up the story into multiple routes oftentimes is not a good thing and can take away from a more whole feeling. Three Houses makes this fatal error by splitting the game into not 2, not 3, but 4 different routes. Unfortunately, Edelgard's route feels highly incomplete and lackluster. The Golden Deer and Church routes are basically the same thing with minor differences in the lore you're given, and the Blue Lion's route stands alone as a revenge arc that tells you absolutely nothing that isn't on the path of Dimitri's tunnel vision slaughterfest.
Kill every last one of them!
Don't get me wrong, each route does convey some important elements that are very relevant to you piecing together the story, but having to put in 200 hours or so into a game to get this full unraveling, only to have the routes overlap for about 75% of the game, just makes it feel tedious. So what should they have done to fix this? That's actually pretty simple. We only really needed 2 playable routes here, and I'm about to get into spoiler territory here, so if you haven't beaten the game or care about spoilers in any capacity, you've been warned. It's obvious that the Blue Lion's route is the most polished route. The character interactions feel more fleshed out, there's more cutscenes and more CGs, and there are more things going on here that makes it feel like it was meant to be the canon route. This is totally fine, and I actually would not change much here outside of actually giving Dimitri a bit more time to develop in the latter half of his character arc. The pacing takes a very sharp nosedive after they beat up Cornelia for a chapter and then immediately jump back down to beat Edelgard, that it almost seems like their entire army has warp powder to traverse the almost entire continent twice for just a single chapter. A simple 3 to 4 more chapters in this route could have really done some more good in the going to and from that area, and also given more time for development and world building. And they can totally keep that the same, and hide all the lore, and sort of lock Edelgard's route behind clearing Dimitri's first, as a little bonus, and we get to Edelgard's route. This route just sucks. I was super excited to side with her and play Black Eagles in my Let's Play, and boy was I let down. Twice. The first time was when I didn't actually find the convo with her to join the route in the first place. Then I got sent to the Shadow Realm that is the Silver Snow route without my consent. And the second time I was let down was when I actually played this train wreck of a route. The solution here is also very simple, and that lies with Claude. Why is Claude the one researching those who slither in the dark? Shouldn't Edelgard be doing that? Isn't her entire point to bring them down and unite Fodlan? Shouldn't she be the one getting revenge on them and eradicating them off the face of the earth? All of these lore elements from the Church and Golden Deer, just put them in Black Eagles instead. Give this 18 chapter route 6 to 7 more chapters. Give Edelgard some actual good character development outside being a useless bale of hay without her beloved professor, and do this wannabe morally gray character some justice. Now I'm sure you're wondering, if we remove everything from Silver Snow and Golden Deer routes, then what happens to Claude? Well, that's actually really simple. He was marketed as a schemer, and seemed to always be the one to dance on the sidelines, so why not actually incorporate that into the game mechanics? Have him be an NPC in the pre-time skip era that you have to build a relationship with. If you build enough points pre-skip, Then he joins whichever side you are on and is recruitable in post-time skip. If you don't, then he's an enemy character. Very simple, have Claude join which side he sees to benefit his schemes more. And you can even build a little story around that and cause the two routes to actually differ in the way Claude's character is created. And this actually makes sense in relation to his character. After all, the dude legit doesn't care about Fodlan and all he wants to do is go play ball on Almyra anyways. Why does he need his own route? To wrap up this extremely long section, I'll touch on some of the characters very briefly, because you can kind of put them into the world building and the story. I think they might actually be the best part of this here, but only in their supports. Their between chapter dialogue is very generic, and you can replace them all with normal soldiers, and for the most part it would feel fine. But they shine in their supports, so I'm willing to overlook this. Aside from a few flat out boring characters who I'm not going to mention so that I don't get dislike spammed, at least not in this video, the majority of the cast is likable and well developed. I could probably talk for hours about the story and the world, but I'm going to keep it brief for now. Moving swiftly onwards, let's touch very briefly on the map design. The map design here is very subpar. The vast majority of the map objectives are very straightforward and bland route enemy maps, and the maps themselves are invalidated by flyers no matter what. There's almost no terrain that stops them, and there's no real intelligent layering of the enemies or positioning of the reinforcements. Not to mention that Divine Pulse makes an already simple map even simpler by letting you rewind whenever you want, to wherever you want, without consequence. That's all I'm going to say here since I've got an entire video about map design in the works coming soon. The next point to touch on is a major gameplay element that was added to Three Houses, and that is Garrick Mach Monastery. I don't know where I should even start with this one, so let me start with the positives. Yes, there are many positives that I want to talk about here. It's very refreshing to see your characters doing everyday life things and be able to talk to them. It's nice to hear unique and sometimes plot-relevant things from them in the little convos in between the maps, and I actually like the little activities you can do that add a little life and personality to the game. And I just enjoy walking around our base of operations and having there be a real tangible sense of community that we've never seen before in a Fire Emblem game. And no, my castle doesn't count. This is the real deal. But, and this is a big but, I don't like doing this 4 times between every chapter for 22 chapters. Spending 4 hours doing monastery stuff before a main chapter resumes is criminal. Heck, even spending half that is also criminal. And I know people are going to say it's optional and you can skip it, and that's honestly what I started doing myself as soon as I finished my first playthrough, but the fact that you're leaving so much on the table by not doing it feels kind of off. You are also forced in some capacity to go through the teaching part, if I'm remembering correctly. Again, the game is all completely clearable without having to touch it, but all these little things do end up adding up, and if you want to fully experience the game, at least in your first playthrough, the monastery creates a very large layer of game bloating that I don't think is necessary to this degree in Fire Emblem. I would like to see some of these features return, but maybe not in this time-consuming of a manner. Perhaps limit the monastery exploration to once a month, and instead of teaching the students one by one and having to feed them to increase their stamina or whatever it's called, just have that be a toggle for what weapon or movement rank increases more in battle, and call it at that. The monastery is definitely something that did not age well, at least with me, and I find it as a bit of a deterrent for whenever I consider picking up the game and replaying it again. I just sit there and I cringe at the fact that I have to do the monastery stuff. The DLC campaign actually did this really nicely, and I'd be amicable to something along those lines instead. Having said that, after all this negativity, let's take a quick opportunity to visit some of the more artistic things about the game. I think the music was fantastic, and at the very least on par with the rest of the series, with some big standouts like God-Shattering Star, for example. And the art for the game looked really nice. While the visuals weren't anything to write home about, and the textures leave a lot to be desired, Fire Emblem has never looked this good before. And so it's a direct upgrade to what we've had in the past, and I call this a win. The only thing I can somewhat complain about here are the animations, but that's just me being partial to the incredible and personality-filled animations of the Game Boy Advance era games. Last but not least, let's talk about the DLC, because whether or not you buy it, it is a component of the game, and so it should be included in a discussion like this. I did a full review of the Cindered Shadows DLC in a separate video, so if you want to hear my in-depth thoughts on that, you can check that out, but to summarize it, I think this was actually a superior game experience in every way, and it feels like they fixed a lot that I found tedious in the main game. I very much enjoyed playing through this one, and I basically have nothing negative to say about it outside of the fact that it's clearly detached and a non-canonized story, which was a little bit of a letdown. They missed out on a lot of things that they could have fleshed out from the main story or added here, and I would have loved to see that. But otherwise, I think everything else was done phenomenally. Overall, I look back at my Three Houses experience, and I can't say that I didn't enjoy the game. On the contrary, I actually had a lot of fun playing it and discussing it with my friends and peers, but with each passing playthrough it felt more and more like a slog, and I don't really have much desire to play it again anytime soon. Due to this, I have to say that Three Houses, despite having a lot of nice characters that I still want to continue to discuss on the channel, didn't really age the best in my estimation. But hey, I could be wrong, and maybe I just need to throw myself back into it to rekindle my love for the game. I probably will pick it up and play it again sometime soon, maybe as a little first anniversary kind of exercise. I'll just do it again. But that's it from me for this video. Make sure you let me know in the comments what your opinion on Three Houses is now that we're a year in and all the dust is settled, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.